His own son pointed to the door and said, "Apologize to my mother, or get out." Everyone believed the father had stolen from his own family's charity. Every document proved he was guilty. But when Samuel Velsa returned carrying just one small item, the man who had destroyed his life completely fell apart. What really happened? Stay until the end, because every twist changes everything. Before we begin, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more unforgettable stories. The night my own son told me to apologize to my wife or leave my home should have been impossible. Families don't usually collapse in a single evening. Looking back now, I know that wasn't the beginning of my story. It was only the moment when years of carefully planned deception finally reached their destination. My name is Samuel Velsa, and everything I believed about loyalty, trust, and family was tested because one man understood how to weaponize reputation better than anyone I had ever met. For most of my life, people described me as practical. I spent more than 4 decades working as a structural engineer, solving problems that required evidence instead of assumptions. Buildings either stood safely or they didn't. Steel either carried the intended weight or it failed. Facts mattered. That habit followed me home, where I often preferred quiet observation over emotional arguments. Some people misunderstood that as coldness, but my wife, Eleanor, had always known who I truly was. At least, I believed she did. After retirement, I found new purpose restoring abandoned historic buildings across neighboring counties. Every Monday morning, I packed my pickup truck with tools before sunrise and drove wherever another forgotten courthouse, library, or train station needed careful hands. Those projects kept me active while giving neglected places another chance to serve their communities. I never imagined that while I was helping preserve old foundations, someone was quietly destroying the foundation of my own family. My son Adrian often teased me about spending my retirement covered in dust instead of relaxing on a beach somewhere. I always laughed and told him that meaningful work never really ended. He usually smiled before changing the subject. Looking back, I now recognize that those conversations gradually became shorter over the previous year. Phone calls that once lasted an hour suddenly ended after only a few minutes. Weekend dinners became less frequent. Invitations stopped arriving without explanation. At the time, I blamed adulthood, busy schedules, and ordinary family distance. I never considered that someone might be feeding him reasons to question my character. About 8 months before everything exploded, Adrian introduced us to a man named Kalen Rice Norwood during a fundraising banquet hosted by our family's charitable foundation. Kalen possessed the kind of confidence that immediately filled every room. He greeted everyone by name, remembered personal details from conversations months earlier, and somehow managed to make each person feel uniquely important. Community leaders praised his generosity. Local newspapers regularly featured his non-profit organization. Even seasoned business owners sought his advice regarding charitable investments. Everything about him projected credibility. He shook my hand firmly that evening and complimented the restoration projects I had been completing throughout the county. His knowledge surprised me because he referenced specific buildings that received very little public attention. I thanked him politely, but something about his smile lingered in my thoughts after we returned home. It wasn't arrogance. It wasn't friendliness either. It felt calculated, as though every expression had been rehearsed until it produced exactly the reaction he wanted. Weeks turned into months, and Kalen became a regular presence in our family's life. Adrian admired him openly. Eleanor appreciated his dedication to community programs. Invitations to dinners, fundraising meetings, and charity events increased until seeing Kalen several times each month became completely normal. Whenever conversations drifted toward finances or organizational planning, Kalen displayed remarkable confidence while encouraging everyone else to trust his experience. I rarely challenged him because nothing he said appeared unreasonable. Still, I noticed he often answered difficult questions with long stories instead of direct explanations. One rainy Thursday afternoon, I stopped by the foundation office to deliver historical photographs that would be displayed during an upcoming fundraising exhibit. The receptionist informed me that Adrian and Kalen were finishing a private meeting upstairs. While waiting in the lobby, I accidentally overheard only a single sentence as the conference room door opened. "Don't worry," Kaylin said calmly. "Once people believe the first version, they almost never question the second." The comment seemed oddly specific, but Adrian laughed as though it were nothing more than professional advice about public relations. They walked into the hallway before noticing me. Kaylin smiled immediately, his expression changing with almost unsettling speed. He thanked me for supporting the foundation and casually asked about my latest restoration project. The uncomfortable sentence I had overheard disappeared beneath ordinary conversation, and within minutes I convinced myself I had misunderstood the context. Life continued normally for several more months. I spent long days restoring an abandoned courthouse nearly 2 hours from home. Eleanor volunteered more frequently through the foundation's outreach programs. Adrian accepted increasing responsibilities on the organization's advisory committee. Everything appeared stable from the outside. If anything had changed beneath the surface, I couldn't see it yet. Then little things started happening. A supplier called asking why I had cancelled an equipment order that I never cancelled. A longtime colleague emailed me requesting clarification about an investment proposal I had supposedly endorsed despite never seeing it before. Twice, I received automated banking alerts for password reset attempts that I certainly hadn't requested. None of those incidents caused actual damage because I corrected them quickly, but together they created a quiet feeling that something around me no longer fit together properly. The confrontation arrived on an ordinary Tuesday evening, which somehow made it even harder to accept. I had spent the entire day replacing damaged wooden beams inside the old courthouse restoration project. By the time I drove home, the sun had already disappeared, and the porch lights were glowing softly against the darkness. I expected nothing more than a quiet dinner with Eleanor and perhaps a conversation about the weekend. Instead, I stepped into a silence so heavy that I immediately sensed something was wrong. Eleanor was sitting at the dining table with both hands folded tightly together. Adrian stood near the living room window, his arms crossed, avoiding eye contact. On the table rested several neatly organized folders beside an open laptop. Neither of them greeted me. "I think we need to talk," Eleanor finally said. Her voice sounded controlled, but I could hear tension beneath every word. I placed my keys on the counter and slowly removed my jacket. "What happened?" Adrian looked directly at me for only a second before sliding one of the folders across the table. "You tell us." Inside were copies of financial reports from the Velsa Family Foundation. Several transfers totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars had been highlighted in bright yellow. Every authorization carried my name. Every signature looked exactly like mine. At first I assumed they were photocopies from an old meeting. Then I noticed the dates. Some of the transfers had supposedly been approved while I was working 2 counties away restoring the courthouse. I remembered those days clearly because I had taken dozens of progress photographs during the project. "I've never seen these before," I said calmly. Adrian's expression hardened. "Dad, please don't insult us." "I'm not." Eleanor slowly turned the laptop toward me. The screen displayed scanned authorization forms, email confirmations, and digital approval logs. According to the records, I had personally authorized every transaction. The evidence appeared flawless. Too flawless. I leaned closer. The signatures matched mine almost perfectly, but something about the spacing looked unnatural. Years of signing engineering permits had trained my eyes to notice tiny inconsistencies. Whoever created these documents copied my handwriting exceptionally well, yet every signature landed in almost the exact same position on each page. Real signatures never repeated with that level of precision. "These are forged." The room became silent. Adrian laughed once. Not because he found anything amusing, because he couldn't believe what he had just heard. "So now every document is fake?" "I'm saying someone copied my signature." "And hacked the email system?" "I don't know." "And manipulated the banking records?" "I don't know that either." He stepped closer. "No, Dad. You just don't want to admit what you did." The accusation struck harder than I expected. Not because of the words themselves, because I realized he genuinely believed them. Eleanor reached into another folder and carefully removed a printed email. It had supposedly been sent from my account 3 months earlier. The message instructed the accounting department to move foundation funds into temporary holding organizations before redistributing them later. My name appeared beneath the message. Even the writing style resembled mine. Except for one detail. I never used exclamation marks in professional emails. This message contained 3. I pointed at the screen. I didn't write this. Neither of them answered. Instead, Adrian opened another file. This came from the security review. Inside were access logs showing my employee identification entering the foundation office multiple evenings after business hours. Again, impossible. My access card had remained inside my desk drawer for months because I rarely visited the office anymore. Someone had either duplicated my credentials or manipulated the logs themselves. But from where my family sat, those possibilities sounded like desperate excuses. Eleanor's eyes slowly filled with tears. I defended you for weeks. The sentence confused me. For weeks. She nodded. People started asking questions over a month ago. A cold sensation spread through my chest. I had known nothing about rumors. Nothing about investigations. Nothing about private meetings taking place behind my back. Someone had been building this case carefully while allowing suspicion to grow naturally. No wonder Adrian already sounded convinced. This hadn't started tonight. It had been unfolding for weeks without my knowledge. Then another voice entered the room. Kalen Rice Norwood stepped through the still-open front door carrying a leather briefcase. He looked surprised to see me standing there. Or at least he pretended to. I hope I'm not interrupting, he said quietly. Adrian immediately turned toward him. We're handling it. Kalen lowered his eyes with practiced sympathy. I know this must be painful for everyone. Painful. Not shocking. Not unbelievable. Painful. As though guilt had already been decided. He walked toward the table and gently placed another folder beside Eleanor. I brought the remaining audit summaries. Remaining. The word echoed inside my mind. How many meetings had taken place without me? How long had Kalen been guiding these conversations? I looked directly into his eyes. For the briefest moment, his calm smile disappeared. Only for a fraction of a second. Then it returned. That tiny crack told me something every document in the room could not. He wasn't worried about proving I was guilty. He was only worried that I might somehow prove I wasn't. Kalen never raised his voice. That was one of the reasons people trusted him so easily. While everyone else reacted with frustration or disappointment, he remained calm, measured, and patient. Standing beside my dining table, he looked less like an outsider and more like a mediator trying to save a broken family. It was a role he played with remarkable precision. I think everyone should take a breath, he said softly. Emotions are high, and we don't want to make this situation worse. I stared at him without answering. For a brief moment, our eyes met again. There was no sympathy behind his expression. There was calculation. It vanished so quickly that anyone else would have missed it, but years spent negotiating construction contracts had taught me to recognize people who controlled every reaction they displayed. Adrian looked exhausted. I asked Kalen to come because he helped organize the audit. He's seen everything. Everything. The words settled heavily inside the room. I slowly turned toward my son. And you never thought to ask me before inviting someone else into our family? His jaw tightened. We tried. No. I shook my head. You collected evidence. That's not the same thing. Eleanor quietly wiped away a tear. We wanted to believe there was another explanation. There is. She looked at me hopefully for only a second. Then tell us. If I knew exactly how this was done, I would. The hope disappeared from her face almost immediately. From where they sat, my answer sounded weak. I understood why. The evidence surrounding me looked complete. Financial transfers, email records, access logs, signed approvals. Every piece reinforced the next until denying them seemed unreasonable. It was exactly how I would have designed a convincing engineering report. Every supporting element strengthened the structure. Except this structure had been built on lies. Kalen carefully opened his briefcase and removed several additional documents. I wasn't planning to bring these tonight, he said, but perhaps transparency will help everyone move forward. He handed another report to Adrian before placing a copy in front of Eleanor. Neither offered one to me. Apparently, I no longer deserved to see the evidence against myself. Kalen continued speaking in the same gentle tone. The independent auditors discovered repeated irregularities connected to Samuel's authorization credentials. We delayed making accusations because we wanted absolute certainty. Absolute certainty. Interesting choice of words. Real investigators rarely claimed certainty before finishing an investigation. Only people selling conclusions did that. I finally spoke. Who selected these auditors? Kalen answered immediately. The Foundation Board approved them. Who recommended them? A tiny pause. I did. There it was. Small. Almost invisible. But important. Before I could ask another question, Adrian interrupted. Dad, stop trying to blame everyone else. I'm asking basic questions. No. He stepped closer. You're avoiding responsibility. His voice cracked slightly as he spoke. He wasn't angry because he hated me. He was angry because believing I was innocent would force him to question everything he had accepted over the past several weeks. That realization hurt more than the accusations themselves. Kalen gently placed a hand on Adrian's shoulder. It looked supportive, protective, almost fatherly. The gesture lasted only 2 seconds, yet something about it disturbed me. He wasn't comforting my son. He was reinforcing influence. The movement seemed natural enough that no one noticed except me. Eleanor finally stood. I can't keep doing this. Her voice trembled. I've defended you to friends, to board members, to neighbors. Every day someone asks another question. She looked directly into my eyes. I just need you to tell the truth. I am telling the truth. No. Her shoulders slumped. You're telling me what you wish were true. Silence filled the room. Outside, rain tapped steadily against the windows. Somewhere in the kitchen, the refrigerator hummed quietly. Ordinary sounds continued while my family unraveled in front of me. Adrian walked to the front door and pulled it open. His face had changed. The uncertainty that once lingered there was gone. Only determination remained. You have 2 choices. I looked at him without moving. You apologize to Mom for everything you've done. His voice became firmer. Or you leave. The words echoed through the house. For several long seconds, nobody spoke. I searched my son's face, hoping to find hesitation. Instead, I found disappointment. He truly expected me to confess to crimes I had never committed. I looked toward Eleanor one final time. She lowered her eyes. That silent gesture answered every question I still carried. Neither of them believed me anymore. Without another argument, I walked upstairs to our bedroom. I packed one suitcase with enough clothes for several days, my work boots, a folder containing personal records, and an old notebook where I kept restoration project schedules. As I zipped the suitcase closed, my eyes settled on a framed family photograph taken 10 years earlier. We were smiling beside a restored lighthouse after celebrating our anniversary. I almost reached for the picture before stopping myself. Memories would not help me tonight. When I returned downstairs, Adrian stepped aside just enough to clear the doorway. He never said goodbye. Kalen remained completely silent. As I crossed the front porch, I glanced back through the window. My son was speaking with Kaylin, not with his mother. And somehow, in that single quiet moment, I realized something far more dangerous than losing my home had already happened. Someone else had become the voice my son trusted most. I spent my first night alone in a roadside motel less than 30 miles from my hometown. The room smelled faintly of old furniture polish and fresh detergent, and the air conditioner rattled every few minutes. I slept no more than 2 hours. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Adrian's voice repeating the same sentence. Apologize to Mom or get out. It wasn't simply the order that haunted me. It was the certainty behind it. My own son had reached a conclusion long before I walked through the front door that evening. The following morning, I drove to a small apartment complex in a neighboring county where I signed a month-to-month lease. The apartment was modest, containing only a kitchen, a living room, one bedroom, and a narrow balcony overlooking a quiet parking lot. It wasn't home, but it gave me something I desperately needed at that moment. Distance. If someone had carefully arranged every piece of evidence against me, reacting emotionally would only make their job easier. For the first several days, I avoided calling Eleanor or Adrian. Every conversation would have become another argument, and arguments never defeated carefully manufactured evidence. Facts did. Somewhere beneath the mountain of documents, someone had made a mistake. People capable of creating complicated lies often became overconfident. Overconfidence always left traces. I began reviewing everything I could remember about the previous year. I spread calendars, restoration schedules, fuel receipts, hotel invoices, and project photographs across my dining table until nearly every surface disappeared beneath stacks of paper. My engineering career had taught me that timelines exposed contradictions better than opinions ever could. If I reconstructed each week accurately, perhaps I could identify the first moment someone started building the case against me. 3 evenings later, I noticed something unusual. Almost every questionable financial transfer occurred on days when I had been working outside the city. More specifically, the transfers happened while I was restoring buildings with volunteer crews that could verify my location. Whoever forged my records apparently assumed no one would ever compare foundation transactions with restoration schedules. They counted on appearances, not investigation. That realization gave me my first genuine sense of hope. The next morning, I returned to the restoration site at the abandoned courthouse. Several volunteers greeted me warmly without mentioning the accusations spreading through town. Either they hadn't heard the rumors yet, or they simply judged me by years of working beside them instead of gossip. Their normal behavior reminded me that not everyone had already decided I was guilty. During lunch, one volunteer handed me a local newspaper. I figured you'd want to see this. Across the front page appeared a large photograph of Kaylin Rice Norwood standing beside several city officials during a charity announcement. The article praised his leadership while describing the foundation's commitment to financial transparency after what the reporter called recent internal concerns. Internal concerns. Not allegations. Not investigations. The wording sounded carefully chosen. Kaylin wasn't merely responding to rumors. He was shaping them. By presenting himself as the responsible leader cleaning up someone else's mistakes, he strengthened his own credibility before any official findings became public. I folded the newspaper carefully and slipped it into my truck. That article wasn't proof of anything criminal, but it demonstrated something equally important. Kaylin understood public perception exceptionally well. Every statement he made seemed designed to guide people toward one conclusion without directly accusing anyone. That afternoon, I decided to visit the county records office. Most people associated the building with property deeds and construction permits. But years earlier I had learned that non-profit organizations were also required to file various public disclosures there. If Kaylin truly held as much influence inside multiple charitable groups as I suspected, official records might reveal connections that ordinary conversations never would. The records office occupied the second floor of an aging municipal building with faded tile floors and shelves filled with decades of archived documents. After explaining that I was researching charitable foundation histories, a clerk directed me towards several public filing cabinets and computer terminals. Hours passed as I examined board memberships, annual reports, and organizational registrations. One name kept appearing: Kalen Rice Norwood. Not just within our foundation. His name surfaced across environmental charities, youth scholarship organizations, neighborhood redevelopment funds, historical preservation committees, and emergency relief partnerships. At first glance, that seemed impressive. Community leaders often served on multiple boards. Then another pattern emerged. Several organizations listed different presidents, different treasurers, and different mailing addresses. But they all shared the same outside financial consultant, the same accounting firm, the same legal representative, the same administrative office. Everything quietly led back to Kalen's network. None of it proved fraud. Yet it suggested an extraordinary level of centralized control hidden beneath the appearance of independent organizations. As I continued searching, an elderly woman organizing archival boxes noticed the growing stack of documents beside my workstation. "You've been studying those records for quite a while," she said with a polite smile. "I suppose I have." She adjusted her glasses before looking at one of the filing numbers. "Most people only request those archives when they're tracing old financial histories." I nodded. "That's exactly what I'm trying to do." She extended her hand. "My name is Dr. Morel Asta. I supervise historical document preservation here." The introduction seemed ordinary. At the time, I had no idea that meeting Dr. Morel Asta would become the turning point that changed everything. Dr. Morel Asta looked to be in her early 70s, but there was nothing slow about the way she organized the stacks of archival folders surrounding her desk. Every label was perfectly aligned, every document carefully protected inside acid-free sleeves. Years of preserving historical records had clearly made precision part of her nature. As she approached my table, her eyes settled on the collection of non-profit filings I had spread across the surface. "Most visitors lose patience after 20 minutes, she said with a gentle smile. "You've been here nearly 4 hours. I've had better reasons than curiosity." She nodded as though she already understood that answer. Without asking another question, she pulled out a chair and sat across from me. "What exactly are you trying to prove?" I hesitated. Normally, I avoided discussing personal matters with strangers, but something about her calm manner encouraged honesty instead of suspicion. "My family believes I stole money from our charitable foundation." Her expression changed immediately. Not with disbelief, with concern. "And you didn't?" "No." She studied my face for several quiet seconds before speaking again. "People who lie usually begin by defending themselves. You began by describing what others believe. That's an interesting difference." I gave a tired smile. "I was an engineer for 42 years. Facts come before opinions." "Good," she replied. "Then let's look for facts." For the next hour, I explained everything that had happened, beginning with the strange financial transfers and ending with the night Adrian ordered me to leave my own home. I showed her copies of several public filings and pointed out the repeated connections surrounding Kalen's organizations. She listened without interrupting, occasionally writing short notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she tapped her pen thoughtfully against the table. "You're focusing on people. I should be focusing on documents. You should be focusing on history." I frowned. "I'm not sure I understand." She stood and motioned for me to follow her through a secured hallway leading toward the archive storage rooms. Unlike the public research area, these rooms contained thousands of sealed storage boxes arranged by year and institution. Climate-controlled air circulated quietly through narrow aisles lined with decades of preserved material. "Most people think documents only contain visible information," she explained while unlocking a cabinet. "They forget that records also leave invisible trails." She removed a gray archive box and carried it to a nearby work table. Modern organizations constantly replace computers, software, and storage systems. But before they do, many automatically create preservation backups for legal compliance. "You mean old copies?" "Including drafts, revision histories, timestamps, user identifications, and system metadata. I immediately understood why her explanation mattered. If someone forged financial records, they might successfully alter the visible documents, she finished. But they may not erase every historical version. For the first time since leaving my house, genuine hope returned. She opened the archive box. Inside rested several encrypted storage drives, along with printed inventory logs. Our county began accepting voluntary digital preservation archives years ago. Most organizations ignored the program because they didn't understand its value. She checked another inventory sheet. But your family foundation participated. I leaned forward. Those drives contain our records. Possibly. She adjusted her glasses again, assuming they haven't become corrupted. Over the next several days, I returned to the records office every morning. Dr. Astor obtained the legal authorization required to examine archived preservation copies, while ensuring every step remained properly documented. She insisted that if we discovered anything significant, the evidence would only matter if its chain of custody remained unquestionable. Her attention to procedure reminded me of engineering inspections. Every observation required documentation. Every file required verification. Nothing could rely on assumptions. On the fourth afternoon, we finally accessed one of the preserved archive images. Thousands of historical files appeared on the recovery screen. Board meeting minutes, grant applications, budget revisions, audit correspondence. The volume was overwhelming. "We don't need everything," Dr. Astor said calmly. "We only need the right trail." We concentrated on authorization records connected to the suspicious financial transfers. Many files appeared completely normal. Then one recovered draft immediately caught my attention. Its visible content matched one of the forged authorization forms almost perfectly, except for one detail. The metadata identified a different creation source. Instead of being generated from the Foundation's administrative office, the file originated from a workstation registered to an external consulting office. I looked at the identifier twice before speaking. "Can metadata be wrong?" "It can," Dr. Astor answered, "but it usually requires someone to alter it intentionally. And if they don't, then it often becomes one of the most reliable witnesses available." She began recovering additional historical versions from surrounding dates. One after another, the pattern repeated itself. Different forged approvals, different transfer requests, different revision histories. Yet every original creation record pointed toward the same outside office. Not my home. Not my computer. Not the Foundation headquarters. The consulting office managed by Kalen's financial network. Neither of us celebrated. Experienced investigators understood that early discoveries could still be challenged. Instead, Dr. Astor quietly printed verification logs while saving authenticated recovery reports onto secure archival media. As the final progress bar reached 100%, she slowly looked up from the monitor. "Samuel," she said carefully, "I believe someone didn't simply frame you." She paused before continuing. "I believe they built an entire system designed to survive ordinary investigations." I stared at the recovered records glowing on the screen. For months, I had searched for one mistake. Instead, we had uncovered the edge of something far larger than a single forgery. Dr. Morel Astor refused to rush. Although the recovered metadata strongly suggested that someone outside the Foundation had created the forged authorization files, she reminded me that suspicion and proof were not the same thing. Every discovery had to withstand legal scrutiny. If we made a mistake now, the person responsible could dismiss everything as unreliable technical speculation. That was exactly what I could not allow to happen. For the next 2 weeks, we worked methodically. Each morning I arrived at the archives shortly after opening, carrying coffee for both of us. Dr. Astor already had a checklist prepared before I reached her office. Every recovered file was verified against preservation logs. Every timestamp was compared with server synchronization records. Every digital fingerprint was documented. The process felt slow, but I knew careful work often outlasted dramatic accusations. One afternoon, while comparing revision histories, I noticed another strange detail. The forged authorization forms were never edited inside the Foundation's secure document system. Instead, complete files suddenly appeared as if they had been finalized somewhere else before being imported into the Foundation's database. Legitimate documents normally showed multiple revisions created by different employees. These files had almost no editing history at all. I pointed at the screen. Whoever made these didn't understand how normal office documents evolve. Dr. Astor smiled faintly. Exactly. They focused on making the finished product believable while forgetting that genuine work leaves behind a trail of small changes. That observation became our next lead. Using archived synchronization records, we reconstructed the path several forged files had taken before reaching the Foundation servers. Instead of originating from internal workstations, they passed through a secure consulting portal maintained by an outside financial advisory office. The office belonged to Norwood Strategic Consulting, Kalen's company. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the monitor. This can't be a coincidence anymore. No, Dr. Astor answered quietly. But coincidence still isn't enough for court. She was right. Even if Kalen's office created the documents, he could argue that another employee used the system without his knowledge. We needed evidence connecting the activity directly to him instead of merely to his business. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. Late one evening, as Dr. Astor searched through archived maintenance logs, she discovered preserved authentication records that most organizations routinely ignored. Every administrator login generated an encrypted identifier connected to the individual device used during access. Several forged financial approvals shared the exact same administrator identifier. We traced it through older preservation records. The identifier appeared repeatedly during late-night editing sessions over nearly 3 years. 3 years. Long before anyone suspected financial irregularities inside our foundation. I felt my pulse quicken. He wasn't reacting to an opportunity. Dr. Astor slowly nodded. He may have been building this operation for years. The realization changed everything. This was no longer a desperate attempt to steal money from one charity. It looked like an organized system. The next morning we visited the county prosecutor's technical evidence office. Rather than making accusations, Dr. Astor requested an independent forensic review of the archived recovery process. She wanted neutral specialists to examine every preservation step without knowing our conclusions. I admired that decision. If experts with no connection to us reached the same findings, our evidence would become far more difficult to challenge. 3 anxious days passed before the forensic analysts completed their review. Their lead examiner, a quiet man named Victor Haynes, invited us into a conference room. He placed a thick report on the table. We verified the archive integrity. I held my breath. The metadata recovery process appears authentic. He opened the report to several highlighted pages. We also identified repeated creation events linked to the same external workstation and administrative device identifier. I looked toward Dr. Astor. She remained completely calm. Victor continued. However, there's something even more significant. He turned another page. The consulting portal wasn't used only for your foundation. Rows of organization names filled the report. Youth scholarship programs, emergency relief funds, housing assistance charities, historic preservation trusts, environmental organizations. More than a dozen non-profit groups appeared in the same network analysis. Every one of them shared digital activity through the same consulting infrastructure controlled by Kalen's company. My stomach tightened. You're telling me this extends beyond my family? Victor nodded gravely. It appears someone established a centralized document management process that touched numerous independent charities. As we left the building, The afternoon sky had darkened with approaching rain. We stood silently on the courthouse steps while people hurried toward their cars carrying umbrellas against the wind. Finally, I broke the silence. If this reaches the public, Kalen will deny everything. He will, Dr. Astor replied. He has spent years building a reputation strong enough to survive ordinary accusations. I looked at the evidence case resting securely beneath my arm. Then we need something stronger than accusations. She smiled for the first time that day. We're thinking exactly the same way. The City Museum's annual fundraising gala was only 3 weeks away, and Kalen himself would be standing at the center of the event. For the first time since I walked out of my home with a single suitcase, I wasn't planning to defend myself. I was preparing to let the truth introduce itself.